The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the fields of golden corn. Just as the light began to fade, a sound broke the peaceful silence, the unmistakable rumble of hooves pounding against the earth. Dust swirled up in the air, caught in the last beams of sunlight. A chill raced down the farmer's spine. He stood, his hands worn and calloused, clutching a worn pitchfork, a tool that had seen every season of growth and decay. But this was no ordinary evening on the farm. The horizon seemed to darken as a menacing figure emerged from the direction of the woods. Shadows leaped from tree to tree, forming a chaotic wave of movement. A gang of marauders rode hard, their laughter echoing through the air, a soundtrack of impending doom. Their faces gleamed with the thrill of chase, hungry for trouble, and today they had set their sights on the farmer's land. He could almost taste the bitterness of fear rising in his throat, yet deep down, something ignited inside him. The field stretched out like a sea of promises. Each plan had been nurtured with care for months, perhaps years. This was not just land, it was his livelihood, his home. The marauders may have had strength in numbers, but he had resolve, a powerful force that often trumped fear. The first figure reached the fence, a dark silhouette against the dying light. His voice cut through the evening air like a knife. Defiant laughter erupted from the group behind him. Farmer lowered the pitchfork, an unyielding and resolute look in his eyes that spoke more than words ever could. "You want fun." His voice was steady, an unexpected bolstering of courage in the face of chaos. The marauders chuckled, but the laughter held an edge. The leader, his face smeared with dirt and arrogance, waved a dismissive hand. "This is your final warning. Hand over your goods and we'll leave you standing. Otherwise..." Behind him, the gang began to circle the barn like wolves eyeing their prey. Each horse's hooves thudded against the ground, shaking the earth beneath the farmer's feet. A part of him wanted to run, to flee into the depths of the fields, but he planted himself firmly where he stood. Beneath the brashness of the marauders, he could see the glimmer of uncertainty. They were looking for a weakness, a crack to exploit, and that, he realized, might be their greatest mistake. They underestimated the fierce bond between a farmer and his land. "Why don't you put down the pitchfork, old man? The only thing you'll accomplish is getting yourself hurt," the leader taunted, brandishing a knife that sparkled menacingly against the dimming light. Those who stood behind him moved restlessly, their eagerness palpable. A battle was brewing, but who would dare raise their arms? The farmer tightened his grip on the pitchfork, eyes narrowed in determination. "Hurt. This land has endured storms, droughts, and every challenge nature could muster. You think you can frighten me away?" With every ounce of resilience he could muster, he thrust the pitchfork forward, a silent declaration. The bravery of his stance sent ripples of tension through the gang. They hadn't expected this, they hadn't expected him to stand his ground. The marauders exchanged glances of surprise, and for a brief moment the air crackled with uncertainty. Fear was creeping into the edges of their bravado. But the leader, determined not to show weakness, raised his voice, trying to rally them. "Do you really want to waste time on this old man? Let's make this quick." In that very moment, the beauty of the golden fields behind the farmer shimmered in the twilight like a peaceful sea. Every inch of that land was a memorial, a testament to hard work, perseverance, and loves lost and gained. It represented family, memories, the struggles and dreams of generations. Fortunately, there was more than just the physicality of the land. There was an unseen force that connected them all. It was pride, history, and heartbreak. "Go ahead," the farmer said, voice steady and unwavering. "Take whatever you want, but you'll find nothing here but toil." With a sudden burst of adrenaline, the leader spurred his horse forward and the marauders broke into a chaotic charge. Dust spiraled into the air as they rode hard toward the farmer, a tidal wave of chaos threatening to drown him. He could hear the thud of hooves, each beat like a war drum, echoing the tempest crashing in his heart. But amidst the clamor of fear, something primal awakened within him. Memories flooded back of digging deep into the soil, of nurturing seedlings, watching them thrive against the odds. He felt every ounce of labor he and his family had poured into this land roar back, louder than the marauders' screams. With a cry that cut through the chaos, he thrust the pitchfork into the dirt at the edge of the path. The earth trembled, and the Marauders hesitated just long enough for him to make his move. He dove to the side, aiming for the nearest tree. Using it to propel himself back into the farm's heart, he moved with a fierce determination fueled by the weight of generations. As he sprinted through the lush rows of corn, a loud crack echoed. A branch snapped from above and his heart raced. The Marauders had passed, and now they were biting at his heels like feral dogs. But he wasn't just running, he was setting a trap. Drawing upon every ounce of strategy born from years spent tending the land, he carefully navigated through the thrumming rows, leading the gang deeper into the maze of tall stalks. His heart pounded in his chest, a drum announcing the firm belief that he could protect what was his. He recalled countless stories from the past, tales of heroes rising in the face of adversity. He was no hero, but he was a fighter, and today he refused to back down. Unbeknownst to the Marauders, they were running into a labyrinth of his design. The farmer had crafted this land, not just through sweat but through cunning. He remembered the old traps he had set long ago, ropes hidden just beneath the corn, ready to spring to life when least expected. Moments later, with a series of thuds and startled cries, the Marauders fell into his trap. One by one, their horses stumbled, sent sprawling into the earth. The laughter faded to yelps of confusion and fear. As they struggled to regain control, the farmer emerged from his hiding place, a fierce sight, wielding the pitchfork like a knight's lance. He called out, a smirk breaking through the resolve etched on his face. "Thought you could scare a man off his own land." The leader of the gang, now on foot, scrabbled to find his footing as chaos erupted. Unable to regroup, they scattered, panic overtaking their bravado. The farmer took a step forward, wielding the pitchfork as if it were a lifeline, embodying every ounce of his heritage. "You wanted to take what wasn't yours, but you'll find us unyielding." With newfound conviction, the remaining Marauders began to retreat, fear gripping their hearts as they scrambled to mount their horses. They had underestimated the ferocity of a farmer with everything to lose. As they rode away into the distance, shouting over their shoulders threats and curses, the farmer stood, chest heaving, a mix of relief and adrenaline coursing through him. He watched them vanish into the silhouette of the trees, the weight of victory settling on his shoulders. The ground beneath him felt solid now. It resonated with the echo of each heartbeat, reinforcing the connection to his land. The sun, now a molten orb gliding beneath the horizon, bathed the fields in gentle light, a reassuring glow. Silence enveloped him, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the trees, a soft melody singing of resilience. He took a breath, letting it out slowly, feeling the tension ease. Each layer of his experience melded into one powerful moment, the very essence of courage sparked in that simple act of standing firm. The farm was his heart, and like a guardian, he'd fought for it. As twilight cast its spell and darkness crept in, the farmer made his way back toward the heart of his land, the scent of earth rich in the air. Tonight, he would pour out a glass of homemade cider and reflect on the day's events, grateful for the memories, the struggle, and the victory, a celebration of spirit and resilience on the land he called home. He realized then that sometimes bravery wasn't about swinging swords or brandishing weapons. It was about standing strong and unyielding, whether the world around you is wild chaos or serene beauty. And as he stood front and center, the shadows of the past and hope for the future danced together, a harmony that would echo across the fields for generations to come. The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the horizon in rich hues of orange and crimson. It was an ordinary evening on the farm, or so it seemed. The sound of rustling corn drifted softly in the breeze, a gentle lullaby coaxing the day to sleep. But amidst that tranquility, a sudden roar echoed in the distance, the frantic galloping of horses shattering the serene moment. A knot twisted in the farmer's stomach. He had spent his life cultivating these fields, nurturing every seed planted in the earth. But now, the threatening sound of marauders invading his land churned the calm into chaos. His heart raced, each beat a reminder of what was at stake. Peering through the shadows of the barn, he spotted them, a band of rough-looking figures charging toward him, their faces twisted with excitement and malice. He grit his teeth, grounding himself in the reality of the moment. This was no ordinary threat. This was a battle for his home. There were 5 of them, clad in ragged leather and brandishing weapons that glinted menacingly in the fading light. They circled the farmhouse like vultures, their laughter piercing the evening air. "Look at this old man," one shouted, voice dripping with mockery. The farmer's grip tightened around his pitchfork. This wasn't just dirt, it was his livelihood, his family's history, and his very soul. Every year he endured droughts and floods, pestilence and disease. He planted, he harvested, he fought with the land itself, and he did it all for this moment to stand firm. He stepped out into the open, the cool evening air brushing against his face. He called, steadying his voice to mask the trembling beneath. The leader of the group, a tall man with scars crisscrossing his face, hollered a laugh. The others joined in, a cacophony of jeers that echoed across the fields. But deep within those mockeries, the farmer could sense something more: fear. They were overconfident, perhaps even reckless, but underneath it all, uncertainty lurked. "Fool or not," he continued, voice rising above the din, "this land has been in my family for generations." He stood tall, unwavering, every muscle tense, heart pounding with the weight of tradition and tenacity. The leader shouted, spurring his horse forward. The beast kicked up dust as it charged, its wild eyes reflecting the chaos around it. The Marauders followed, forming a line behind their leader, eager to break through the last vestiges of a peaceful evening. With a surge of adrenaline, the farmer propelled himself forward. He pivoted, retreating toward the barn, strategically luring the Marauders deeper into the heart of his territory. Every step was purposeful, each move a calculated decision to buy himself time, to rally his thoughts against the raging storm of panic crashing inside him. The noise grew louder, the Marauders closing in, laughter fading as confusion overtook them. They expected to sweep through the farm effortlessly, but he was prepared. Years of living close to nature gave him insight into its movements, its rhythms. And tonight, he was going to turn that knowledge into his weapon. He ducked around a corner of the barn, stealthily moving through the cluttered spaces. His mind raced, remembering the traps he had set before the harvest, the hidden mechanisms designed to safeguard his crops. The thought sent a jolt of purpose through him. He wasn't just a man defending his home, he was a guardian of a legacy. As he made his way through the dimly lit barn, his eyes landed on an old cart, still laden with forgotten tools. He spotted the spade, rusted but sturdy, and with a quick motion, he hefted it into his hands. It felt familiar, the weight comforting, like an extension of himself. He was ready. Outside, the Marauders had begun to scatter, searching the perimeter of the barn, trying to outmaneuver the old man they had underestimated. One of them hissed, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Each rustle of the corn was magnified, every whisper of the wind a reminder of the tension coiling tighter and tighter. From his vantage point, the farmer could see the disbelief etched on their faces, doubt creeping in as the shadows deepened. He waited, letting the silence build. Then, with a deep breath full of purpose, he burst out from the side of the barn, swinging the spade with all his might. The first Marauder went down, caught off guard, and a shocked, gasping hush fell over the rest. The farmer's heart raced, but a lucidity settled over him, the thrill of defending what he held dear. He pivoted quickly, anticipating the others' reactions. He shouted, brandishing the spade like a knight ready for battle. The Marauders hesitated, eyes darting between each other. The leader, still feigning bravado, shouted commands to regroup, but the resolve in his voice had wavered. They could sense the sudden shift in the air. The farmer was not just waiting passively, he had taken the fight to them. As they struggled to form back into their ranks, the farmer took decisive steps forward, a wild determination driving him on. Crimson light filtered through the trees, painting him as a silhouette of strength and resilience. He bellowed, striking the ground with the spade again, the sound reverberating through the night. Watching the Marauders scramble, he saw fear grow in their eyes. They had underestimated the spirit of this land, and even more, the man who fought for it. He took another step closer, forcing them to reevaluate their daring oppressiveness. "This farm stands for more than just crops," he declared, his voice steady and commanding. The leader, now visibly rattled, stepped back involuntarily. The farmer interrupted, fire igniting in his chest. You came here looking for trouble, and trouble you'll find. If you want to leave, do so now." In that moment, the unforgiving reality of their situation dawned on the Marauders. This wasn't just a farm, it was a battleground of principles. The whispers of doubt morphed into fervent uncertainty as they looked between their leader and the resolute figure standing before them. One of them, a younger man with wide eyes, edged backward, frantically shaking his head. He stuttered, dropping his weapon. This simple act sent a wave of confusion washing over the group, a crack forming in their facade of unity. The leader's facade crumbled. He growled, his voice losing its edge as he realized the fear had spread among them like wildfire. "Get back here." "No," the young one called. "We came here to take." With that, more began to falter, shifting their stances, arms trembling. The farmer's heart surged at the sight. Here it was, the moment of triumph. The feeling of control surged like the rising tide. He tightened his grip on the spade, stepping further into their path. "You want to leave? Do it." The leader, clutching a dagger now, shouted again at his men, but his voice wavered. With every second that passed, he lost ground, losing his grasp, his raucous confidence slipping like sand through his fingertips. The gang, once fueled with bravado, now stood uncertain, glancing at one another, doubts deepening with every second of hesitation. The atmosphere shifted, tension crackling as dusk settled in, the cool night air wrapping around them like a shroud. Shadows entwined with truth, and the balance of power shifted toward the farmer as he stood his ground. Each breath he took was filled with defiance, his spirit colliding with theirs. Finally, the Marauders began to retreat, one step back, then two. The farmer didn't let up. He pressed forward just a little more, igniting their fears until they broke into a full-on scramble, turning their backs on him and his land. He yelled, voice echoing through the twilight, a triumphant call lacing the cool air. As they disappeared into the night, the last echoes of their chaos faded into the calming rustle of the cornfields. The farmer stood still, the adrenaline coursing through him slowly ebbing away, replaced by relief and a sense of accomplishment. An eternity felt packed into those fleeting minutes, and yet it was the fight for his legacy that rang truest in his ears. He gazed out over the land, the fields that were now silently whispering their gratitude. Each grain of soil held the weight of his victory, a promise that courage could emerge even in the most turbulent of storms. There, beneath the grand canvas of starlit sky, he reclaimed not just his farm but his entire life, vividly illuminated by the lessons of struggle and resistance. With a deep, shaky breath, he turned back toward the barn. Inside, he would find solace, a place to reflect on his triumph and the spirit that bound him to this earth. His heart, once flooded with fear, now brimmed with fierce pride. Tonight, he had not only held his ground, he had drawn a line in the sand, marking the depths of his devotion to the land he called home. It was a legacy he would carry forward, one that echoed in the whispers of the wind for generations to come. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden light across the sprawling fields. It was a time when most farmers would be winding down, tired from a day of hard work. But for one farmer, this evening was anything but ordinary. Dusk kicked up suddenly, and the low rumble of hooves echoed ominously through the valley. A storm was brewing, but it was no ordinary storm. It was a band of marauders, and they were on the hunt. From the safety of his front porch, the farmer squinted into the distance. The silhouettes of 5 horses emerged, riders perched atop them like vultures circling their prey. Each moment felt stretched, as if the air itself was holding its breath. His heart sank as he recognized their menacing laughter. These weren't just any marauders, they were troublemakers who plundered farms, leaving ruin in their wake. As the sounds of hooves grew louder, so did the pounding of his heart. He glanced at the vast fields around him, the crops he had tended to for years, every plant an echo of sweat, effort, and hope. He knew he couldn't let them take it, not without a fight. The leader, a tall man with a scar slicing across his cheek, raised his hand. He boomed, reckless confidence radiating from him. The others behind him cheered, a wild sound that mingled with the rustling leaves. The challenge hung in the air, heavy with intimidation. But the farmer stood tall on his porch, his broad shoulders squared, hands gripping the worn pitchfork that had been his companion through countless seasons. "This land is mine. You'll find nothing here but struggle," he shouted back, his voice steady and resolute. A chuckle erupted from the scarred leader. Struggle. The crowd of marauders laughed, their arrogance gilding the insults that flew through the air. Surrender now, and we'll let you walk away. A flicker of fear danced in the farmer's chest, but it quickly morphed into a raging fire of defiance. He thought of his family, the nights spent at the kitchen table, the tales of resilience passed down through generations. This farm represented more than just soil. It held stories, legacies, and unyielding spirit. Taking a deep breath, he threw the pitchfork over his shoulder and moved toward the barn. "You want to take what's mine? You'll have to come and get it," he challenged, his voice resonating with the fervor of someone ready to defend their home. The marauders shared uneasy glances, their laughter fading as they drew closer. The leader spat, but beneath the bravado, there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. They had anticipated an easy conquest, but now they faced a man unwilling to give up without a fight. Inside the barn, the farmer's mind raced. He remembered the traps he had set for foxes, the hidden snares that lay in wait for those who dared encroach upon his territory. He gathered some tools, piecing together a plan. This was his land, and he was not about to let these marauders take it without a challenge. He could hear the marauders approaching, their hooves thundering across the dry earth. One of them yelled, the uncertainty creeping in. Stepping out of the shadows, the farmer stood at the barn door, illuminated by the fading light. The pitchfork had become a symbol, a weapon forged from his loyalty to this land. "You came here for trouble, and you'll find it if you keep coming," he growled, voice sharp as a knife. The marauders paused, glancing at one another, confusion mingling with their bravado. "What's he gonna do?" The leader sneered, but the edge in his voice wavered. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, the farmer lunged forward, charging straight for the leader. The element of surprise was all he needed. He swung the pitchfork with precision, narrowly missing as the leader leapt aside, but the sheer determination in his eyes made the marauders falter. This was no ordinary farmer. He was a warrior fighting for his home. Instinctively, the marauders rallied, trying to close ranks, but in their stumbling, the farmer seized the opportunity. His heart raced. He could not let fear rule him now. Around the corner of the barn, he activated one of the traps hidden in the grass, a simple but effective snares made from twine and branches. As the leading marauder stepped forward, he suddenly stumbled, the ground lifting beneath him as he was caught up in the contraption. Chaos ensued. The others shouted, confusion erupting in their ranks. They cried, scrambling to help their fallen companion. For a moment, the farmer sensed blood rushing in his ears, adrenaline spiking through every limb. "This is it," he thought, "my moment to turn the tide." With fierce determination, he leapt forward again, emboldened by their uncertainty. "You want this land," he yelled, charging into the fray. The marauders, now visibly shaken, began to break apart, instinctively retreating as the fight spiraled into disorder. One of them attempted to draw a blade, but the farmer stood resilient, blocking the advance with his pitchfork. "You're not taking anything from me." The leader bellowed orders, trying to regain control over his men, but it was too late. The farmer's fierce resolve ignited the morale of the chaos around him. Each swing of the pitchfork became more than just defense. It became a rallying cry, a fierce reminder of the strength found within struggle. With the shadows growing long, the marauders finally broke. One shouted, scrambling to pull his trapped companion free from the snare. The panic surged through them like wildfire. They had bitten off more than they could chew, and now fear had set in. The farmer took a step forward, raising the pitchfork high, a fearless declaration of victory. "Leave." His voice erupted with the power of 1,000 storms, ringing through the twilight air as the marauders fled into the night, their bravado shattered. Silence fell over the farm, broken only by the soft rustle of the corn in the cool breeze. The farmer stood alone, chest heaving, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away. The weight of his victory settled on his shoulders like a well-worn coat, heavy yet comforting. He rested the pitchfork against the barn, the cool metal glinting in the moonlight, a reminder of the fight. Each breath he took filled him with pride, the realization that not only had he defended his land, but he had won a battle for his family, his history, and his future. As he made his way back toward the farmhouse, the diminished sunlight transformed into a star-studded canopy, sprinkled with the light of the universe, emblematic of hope. It had been a long day, filled with fear and uncertainty, but he had stood his ground. He had fought not just for his crops, but for the spirit of the land that ran through his veins. Inside, the warmth enveloped him like a cherished embrace. He approached the kitchen table where family photos hung on the walls, moments captured in time smiling back at him. They reminded him of the lessons learned from those who came before, the resilience, the strength, the profound connection to their roots. Tonight, he would celebrate. He poured himself a glass of cider, its sweetness rich against the backdrop of the day's bitterness. The battles he faced would not define him. It was the strength to rise, to protect what he loved most, that would serve as a testament to the spirit of this farm. And so, as the stars twinkled down like ancient warriors watching over him, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The struggles of the day had forged a deeper bond between him and the land. In the face of Marauders, he found strength he never knew he had. Each bite of joy in that moment was a reminder that courage isn't simply about physical battles. It is about standing firm against the tides of adversity. The land felt alive beneath his feet, full of the whispers of hope, strength, and resilience. The Marauders would remember this night, and so would he. They had come for a fight, but what they faced was a spirit unfaltering, the heart of a farmer whose bond with the land could never be broken. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the fields of golden corn. The farmer wiped his brow, satisfied with the day's labor. But that satisfaction turned to unease when a low rumble met his ears, horses galloping like a dark storm closing in. He instinctively looked up, heart pounding, as dark figures emerged from the edge of the woods. Marauders. The laughter that erupted from their ranks chilled him. They rode like wolves hunting for prey, eyes gleaming with mischief and menace. The farmer's breath hitched in his throat, his mind racing. These weren't just random thieves. They were notorious for leaving destruction everywhere they went. He had heard the tales hardy farmers reduced to shadows of their former selves, their hopes plundered, their dreams shattered. Staying calm, he pushed down the rising tide of fear. He knew his land, every inch of it. It wasn't just soil, it was a tapestry woven through generations. He had watched his father toil the same fields, his mother nurture the crops, instilling in him a fierce love for this place. There was no way he would let these Marauders take it away. As the Marauders approached, he stepped forward, determination steeling his spine. He would not back down. "You want something," he shouted, gripping his pitchfork tightly. It was a simple tool, but it had served him well through countless seasons, and tonight it would become his weapon of choice. The leader of the group hollered, his laughter echoing mockingly. The sun behind him illuminated his cruel grin, showing teeth like knives. All around, his companions hooted and jeered, their confidence almost palpable. But beneath their bravado, he sensed a flicker of uncertainty. They had come expecting an easy target, but they were about to see that this farmer was no ordinary man. He replied, his voice cutting through the din. "I've fought storms, droughts, and disease." The Marauders hesitated. The leader narrowed his eyes, calculating. He rallied his men forward, who advanced with mounting fervor. There was no retreat now, only confrontation. As they charged, the farmer spun on his heels, making his way toward the barn. Each step resonated with the echoes of hard work, his heart thundering like the hooves behind him. Inside the barn, he felt the cool air wrap around him like a cloak, and with it came an awakening. He had options, plans he could put into motion. He hurriedly grabbed a few tools, some ropes, a spade, and a couple of grinding stones used for sharpening his equipment. Outside, he could hear the Marauders' mounting chatter, plotting their next move. But he had lived through enough storms to know that sometimes you must turn the tide in your favor. Peering through the doorway, he could see the Marauders fanning out, enveloping the farmhouse. From his vantage point, he noted the layout of the land, the low spots in the fields, the rows of corn towering high. If he was clever, he could use the landscape to his advantage. With a sense of purpose igniting within him, he began to set his traps. Ropes were stretched low between the corn stalks, camouflaged in the dying light. He had crafted snares when he was younger, always aware of the cunning needed to protect one's own. As he worked, He could hear the marauders getting closer, their laughter growing louder. Where is he? They were exuberant, perhaps too much so. They had come for a quick grab-and run, not a fight. With the last snare set, he took a deep breath and stepped back into the shadows. This would be a test of grit and resolve. He felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins, igniting every sense within him. This was his land. He would not let it fall without a fight. The marauders grew bolder, their bravado replacing caution. The leader shouted as they neared his carefully laid traps. Little did they know, the farmer was lurking beneath the cover of the barn's shadow, the pitchfork resting in his hand like a sword of fate. As the first marauder tripped over the hidden rope, the sound of startled cries pierced the air. In an instant, the farmer sprang into action. He yelled, charging forward with all the fury and strength he could muster. The sight of their leader falling, tangled like a caught fish, sent shockwaves through the group. Confusion erupted. Marauders scrambled to regroup, and for a split second they faltered. Their overconfidence crumbled like dry earth underfoot. The farmer pressed his advantage, his voice ringing out with fierce authority. "This land is my legacy. You think you can just waltz in and take it?" With the pitchfork thrust before him, he forced the marauders backward, a wall of steadfast determination pressing against their bravado. They were no longer criminals here. They were intruders facing a guardian. Filled the air as the marauders tried to pull themselves together. But in each desperate attempt, they stumbled over one another, their fear growing louder than their bravado. The carefully stacked odds were no longer in their favor. With every word, the farmer found his rhythm, a confidence building as adrenaline surged through him. The old tales echoed in the back of his mind, stories of heroes standing firm against adversity, casting back the shadows that dared encroach upon their lives. Fueled by the spirit of those who had come before him, he yelled again, "You've crossed the wrong man today." His voice sliced through the chaos, slicing right through to their core, lacing the night air with raw determination. He lunged forward once more, swinging the pitchfork, thrusting it toward the marauder closest to him. The man stumbled back, stammering as he lost his footing. At that moment, it all became real. The marauders had come expecting an easy target, but there he was, an unyielding wall, an immovable force. The remaining marauders began to panic, their laughter from moments earlier replaced with uncertainty. Cried one, eyes wide as he scrambled to retreat. Their retreat turned into a chaotic scramble, an instinctual flight from the very ground on which they had sought to tread. The farmer continued to push forward, voice booming, a warrior declaring victory over invaders. The adrenaline transformed his fear into a fierce resolve. "Leave." His voice thundered through the air, booming past any confidence they once had. The moment stretched, and for the first time the marauders halted, realizing they were at the brink of defeat. The leader, who had once seemed so formidable, now stood trembling. He blurted out, but the farmer could see through the facade, every shred of arrogance peeling away like layers of old paint. The farmer scoffed. "You can't just take what isn't yours and then ask for mercy." With one final glance back, the marauders made their break, their chaotic retreat disappearing into the encroaching night. The farmer stood tall, empowered by the weight of victory. The dust from their hurried exit settled on the fields, and the fading light wrapped around him like a blanket of triumph. Silence fell over the farm, an ache of satisfaction washing over him. He leaned against the barn, letting the adrenaline drain from his body, replaced with an overwhelming sense of relief. He had stood his ground, faced down chaos, and come out on the side of strength. As night fully enveloped the landscape, stars sparkled overhead, bearing witness to his courage. Each twinkle felt like a nod of approval, a reminder that in the darkest of times, light could still shine through. The farm remained whole, his legacy intact. With a deep breath, he raised his eyes to the heavens, gratitude swelling within him for the strength he never knew he possessed. Inside the farmhouse, he would gather his family around the table, sharing the story of their victory over marauders, a tale of resilience and courage echoing through generations to come. He had always known the value of what he fought for, but tonight, he would understand that true strength comes not only from the land we cultivate, but from the spirit we nurture within ourselves. The marauders may have come for a fight, but what they found was a heart ready to defend its home, every beat echoing the call of the brave. As he walked into the warmth of his home, he knew this was just one chapter in a much larger story. And with every dawn, he would rise again, ready to face whatever calamity may come, fighting for the roots that ran deep in the soil beneath his feet. The bond would remain unbreakable, fortified by the storms he had weathered. In the grand tapestry of life, he would always find the strength to hold his ground. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold as the farmer wiped the sweat from his brow. The fields around him stretched endlessly, ripe with promise, each row of corn whispering secrets of the season. It was supposed to be just another evening, but the stillness shattered with the thundering sound of hooves. A knot formed in his stomach, instinct kicking in like a wild animal sensing danger. Shadows began to emerge over the horizon marauders, their dark figures cutting through the quiet, laughter echoing in the fading light. It wasn't long before they were upon him, circling his farm like vultures on the hunt. The leader, a tall figure with a scar running across his face, raised his arms as if to welcome chaos. He called, his voice dripping with arrogance. Just a lonely farmer. The farmer's heart raced, but he refused to show fear. He had spent years nurturing this land. It was his heritage, his sanctuary. Taking a step forward, he gripped the old pitchfork in his rough hands, its wooden handle a familiar comfort. "You'll have to take it from me first," he replied, voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. Laughter erupted from the marauders, a harsh, mocking sound. "This old man thinks he can stop us," scoffed another, a hefty brute with tattoos snaking up his arms. The farmer raised an eyebrow, his stance widening. "You think terrorizing decent folk is fun?" As they approached, he felt the adrenaline surge, igniting a fire deep within him. Memories of his ancestors flooded his mind, stories of strength in the face of adversity, tales of defiance echoing through the generations. He would not let their legacy be washed away by the shadows of these marauders. The leader stepped closer, laughter fading, replaced by a hint of disbelief. "Are you really going to fight us, old man?" With one swift motion, he stabbed the ground with the pitchfork, creating a deep thud that resonated like the heartbeat of the land itself. The marauders looked at one another, hesitation creeping in for the first time. Perhaps it was the way the farmer stood unwavering, the aura of defiance surrounding him. Or perhaps it was the intensity in his eyes, the resolve of a man who had fought many battles, both seen and unseen. But the leader's bravado returned quickly. He shouted the command, and the marauders charged forward, their horses thundering in a show of force. With instinct set in motion, the farmer dashed into the barn, his heart racing. He knew he had to think quickly. This wasn't just about him. It was about everything he held dear. He grabbed tools, ropes, a sharp spade, and buckets filled with stones for leverage. Each tool held memories of hard work and resilience, and tonight they would become his allies. As the marauders approached the barn, they began to circle it, their eyes scanning for any sign of weakness. The farmer took a deep breath, frustration and fear merging into a mixture of adrenaline. He climbed onto the roof of the barn, crouching low, feeling the rough texture of the wood beneath him. He had worked hard to build this structure, a fortress against all kinds of storms. Looking down, he spotted the marauders laughing among themselves, their confidence swelling like a balloon ready to pop. As they neared the barn door, the farmer swung a bucket of stones down, the sound echoing like thunder, catching the marauders off guard. He shouted, his voice strong and unwavering. The initial laughter now turned into shouts of confusion as they stumbled backward, eyes wide. The leader waved his arms, trying to regain control over his men. "Don't let a little trick scare you." But the hesitation lingered, and that moment was all the farmer needed. Like a wild animal, he sprang from the roof, hit the ground running, and closed the distance between him and the marauders. He roared, swinging the pitchfork. It connected with one of the marauders, who yelped in surprise and fell to the ground. Chaos erupted. The marauders scrambled, uncertain and panicked. The leader, once so confident, now had a flicker of fear in his eyes. The farmer thrived on that fear, pushing forward, determined to reclaim his turf. "Regroup," the leader barked, but his voice now trembled as he realized the tides had shifted. The Marauders found themselves backing up against the barn, their confidence unraveling like old rope. Heart pounding, the farmer charged in, adrenaline coursing through him like fire. Each swing of his pitchfork felt like a definition of freedom, a testament to his spirit. Memories of his family filled his mind, his father sweating under the sun, nurturing the land with care, and his mother stirring love into every meal. This place wasn't just property, it was his lineage. "Leave my land," he shouted, voice powerful. Each word was a strike against their arrogance. The Marauders looked at one another, confusion morphing into fear. One of them, the young man who had been so eager to join in on the chaos, took his chance and stepped away. "I'm not doing this anymore," he muttered, backing away slowly. The other Marauders glanced at him, uncertainty creeping into their minds. The odds were swiftly falling against them, and the farmer sensed it. "You see," with the sound of flight filling the air, one by one, the Marauders began to retreat. And the band broke into a sprint, galloping away from the farm that had stood firm against them. Silence washed over the landscape as the dust from the Marauders' departure settled. The farmer stood tall, chest heaving, surreal relief washing over him like a soothing balm. The air around him hummed with clarity, each breath a reminder of the battle he had just fought. Slowly, he made his way through the remnants of chaos, heart still racing. He glanced at his farm, the golden corn shimmering in the evening light, standing tall and proud. He had captured not only his land but a deeper understanding of himself. He stepped inside the barn, grabbing a glass from the shelf and pouring himself a drink of cool water. It felt refreshing, each drop a testament to resilience. As the warmth of triumph filled him, he could almost hear the whispers of his ancestors echoing through the walls. They had stood their ground, fought for what they believed in, and so would he. That night, he gathered with his family around the dinner table. The fire flickered warmly, casting a soft glow, and he shared the tale of how he fought off the Marauders. Laughter mixed with awe filled the air, tales of bravery weaving into the fabric of their evening together. The children listened wide-eyed, the lesson sinking deep. "Never forget," he told them, voice steady. "Our strength lies not just in what we own, but in our resolve to stand firm against any storm together." As the stars twinkled brightly overhead, he felt a sense of peace envelop him. Tomorrow would be another day of toil, of love poured into the earth, and he would rise again ready to face whatever may come. This land would never belong to anyone but them, a stronghold of courage bound in the fabric of their family. And in that moment of reflection, he understood. True strength lies not just in fighting, but in the unwavering spirit to hold one's ground, even when faced with overwhelming odds. The farmer smiled, knowing that he had stood his ground not just for himself or his land, but for everything that made him who he truly was. Each day would be a new chapter, and in the heart of the land, he would continue to write his story. The sun hung low, spilling fiery hues across the vast fields as the distant sound of galloping hooves broke the calm evening air. The farmer paused, tools in hand, his heart pounding like a war drum. Days of sweat and toil flashed through his mind. Each drop that fell was a story etched into the fabric of his family's legacy. But now, as shadows raced toward him, everything was at stake. He squinted against the fading light, the silhouette of 5 mounted figures emerging from the tree line. Marauders. He had heard whispers of them from neighbors, ruthless men with empty hearts and greed in their eyes, leaving destruction in their wake. Fear clawed at his insides, but he pushed back, summoning that deep-rooted courage cultivated from years spent working this land. The land that meant everything to him. The leader shouted, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. He laughed, a menacing sound that danced in the twilight. The farmer's grip on his pitchfork tight. This was not a simple robbery. This was a challenge to all he held dear. "Not today," the farmer replied, meeting the leader's gaze with steely defiance. He could feel the weight of generations behind him, ancestors who had battled storms, droughts, and now men like these. "This land belongs to me. You want something." As he stepped forward, the Marauders exchanged glances, their arrogance faltering for just a flicker of time. Perhaps they hadn't expected someone to stand up to them. Perhaps they thought he was just an old man, but they were about to learn that he was far from weak. In a sudden burst, the leader shouted an order, and the marauders surged toward him, the sound of hooves pounding the ground sending tremors through the earth beneath his feet. The farmer's instincts kicked in, a primal response to defend his territory. He pivoted, sprinting toward the barn, adrenaline coursing through his veins like fire. Inside the barn, memories flooded back. He remembered the traps he crafted as a boy, simple but clever, designed to catch those who sought to snatch what wasn't theirs. As he frantically gathered ropes and tools, he could hear the marauders closing in, their laughter echoing against the wooden beams. They thought this would be easy. They thought he would cower. He secured the first rope tightly across the entrance to the barn, hiding the trap amongst the shadows. Then he spread some loose hay on the floor as a distraction, anything to slow them down. Each heartbeat was a reminder of what was at stake: his home, his legacy, his family. Just then, the door swung open and the first marauder stepped inside. Confident, perhaps too confident, he took a few steps in. It was the last thing he would do. The farmer pulled the rope and the marauder stumbled, tripping over the hidden line, falling in a heap of confusion and anger. The farmer yelled, his voice booming with newfound energy. The other marauders hesitated at the entrance, uncertainty flashing across their faces. The leader cursed, struggling to conceal his anger over his fallen comrade. Don't let him intimidate you. But with each passing moment, the resolve of the farmer only grew stronger. He rushed forward, swinging high with his pitchfork. You want this land? The marauders were no longer laughing. Panic spread like wildfire, and just as the farmer had hoped, they began to retreat further back. They had underestimated him. They hadn't counted on the fire in his soul. The leader ordered, but his voice trembled with disbelief. Instead of obedience, the marauders found themselves hesitating, confusion replacing their aggression. One by one, doubt crept into their hearts as they surveyed the scene. The old man they had laughed at moments ago now stood as a formidable guardian. The youngest of the group, a boy barely out of his teens, stepped back. "I'm not doing this," he said, shaking his head. His words reverberated with an unsettling truth, and others began to nod in agreement, realizing the real danger they faced was not just the farmer but the values they had embraced. An electric tension hung in the air. The farmer took a step forward. "You don't belong here. You don't understand what you're challenging." Each word hit like a hammer, carving a path straight through the marauder's resolve. The leader, recognizing the shift, screamed, "Don't let him get to you." But the enthusiasm in his voice wavered. The marauders hesitated, casting glances at one another, uncertainty written all over their faces. The farmer seized the moment. He lunged forward again. "Get out." His voice rang out like a clarion call, fierce and unwavering. One of the marauders, sensing the impending collapse of their confidence, stepped back, eyes wide. He shouted, retreating as if the very words had been a spell breaking their spellbound stance. And just like that, the dam broke. The leader turned, his bravado vanishing. He shouted, stumbling backwards, fully aware of his unraveling control. The remaining marauders fled, their panic-stricken forms racing into the darkening night. The farmer stood at the edge of his territory, breathless but victorious, every ounce of adrenaline pulsing through his veins. The world around him suddenly seemed alive, vibrant and full of possibility. He had faced down marauders, and in that tumultuous moment, he had found his spirit ignited. Slowly he stepped back, heart still pounding, the weight of what he'd achieved settling on his shoulders. The sun disappeared beyond the horizon, paint splattering the sky with colors of relief. Silence enveloped the land, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Inside the barn, the animals stirred, sensing a change that hung over the air. The farmer took a moment, breathing deeply, appreciating the sounds of nature surrounding him. He had fought not just for a piece of land, but for a life steeped in honor and tradition. As night settled in, the stars began to twinkle above, a dazzling display reminding him of the countless generations who had walked this very ground. He had a story to tell, a triumph that would echo through time. No one could take that from him. He headed towards the farmhouse, his feet moving with purpose. Inside, the warmth enveloped him like a cherished embrace. The kitchen table was set for dinner, family photographs framing the walls, a tapestry of love woven through each moment. The fire crackled softly, flickering shadows dancing against the walls. Sitting down, he poured himself a glass of cider, the sweet taste filling him with a sense of peace. The day had tested him, but he had discovered something invaluable, the strength within, a determination that would always guide him. He looked around the table at his family, the laughter and love overflowing around him. "Today we stood our ground," he began, his voice steady and proud. A murmur of disbelief flowed through the room, eyes wide with anticipation. But they left running. Cheers erupted as his family celebrated the victory, the strength of unity palpable in the air. They swapped tales of bravery, laughter mixing with stories of resilience, each voice a reminder of their power. They stood firm together, shoulders squared against whatever dared to approach, and every heart in that room echoed the sentiment. That night, as dreams filled his mind, the rolling fields, the golden corn dancing in the wind, the laughter of children echoing through the land, the farmer understood the true essence of courage. It was not merely about fighting back. It was about standing firm in the face of adversity, unwavering in the pursuit of what is right. When dawn broke the following morning, the farmer rose to greet the sun, invigorated and ready for the day ahead. He took stock of the land, proud of its resilience and beauty. He would work hard, as he always had, nurturing and protecting what was his. The Marauders were gone, but the spirit of struggle would remain, binding his family closer together. Each seed he planted today would tell a story of triumph, each harvest a reminder of the strength they had found. He understood that storms would come, not just from nature but from those who sought to disrupt their lives. And in those moments he would remain steadfast, roots deep in the soil of his forefathers, ready to defend what they had built. With every clang of the tools against the earth, he could feel the echo of his ancestors, the heartbeat of the land singing through him. This was not just a farm, it was a testament to resilience, a stronghold of family and faith. And as the sun rose higher, bathing the land in light, he knew he would always hold his ground. Marauders or not, he bore the scars of battles past and a heart aflame with unwavering love for his home. Today was just the beginning of many battles, and he was ready to face them all. He was not just a farmer, he was a guardian, and this land was his to protect. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the sprawling fields. It was a day like any other, the amber waves of grain swaying gently in the breeze. But the peace shattered like glass when a distant sound echoed, the unmistakable thunder of galloping hooves. The farmer paused, tools in hand. His heart raced as he squinted toward the horizon, his brow furrowing in concern. Dust billowed in the air, spiraling upwards like a warning sign, and soon enough silhouettes emerged. 5 men on horseback, riding hard and fast, their laughter mingling with the growing dread in the pit of his stomach. They were marauders. He had heard the stories from neighbors, each tale more chilling than the last of farms left in ruins, families torn apart. For a fleeting moment, panic washed over him, but he quickly pushed it aside. He had worked this land for too long to let fear take root. As the marauders crested the rise, the leader, a brutish figure with a scar carved into his cheek, raised his hand, signaling the others to halt. "Well, well," he shouted, a cruel grin spreading across his face. "Just a lonely farmer." The farmer clenched our pitchfork, the weight of it a familiar comfort. "You'll have to take it from me first," he called back, voice steady as he squared his shoulders. He could feel the weight of generations behind him. This land had been passed down through his family, a testament to their hard work and resilience. Laughter erupted from the marauders, a harsh sound that echoed across the fields. The leader sneered, motioning to his gang. The farmer took a deep breath, adrenaline churning in his veins. He could feel the encroaching threat pressing against him, but within that pressure, something ignited. His heart surged with the determination to protect what was his. With one fluid motion, he pivoted and dashed toward the barn, every beat of his heart resonating with purpose. He had spent years building this farm, pouring every ounce of his sweat into the soil, and he wouldn't let marauders steal it away without a fight. As he burst through the barn doors, shadows danced around him, memories clinging to the walls like old friends. His mind raced. He remembered the traps he had set for animals trying to snatch his crops and the clever ways he had learned to defend his land. Grabbing ropes and tools, adrenaline coursing through him, he began laying out traps and snares, preparing for the confrontation ahead. He worked quickly, knowing he had only moments before the Marauders would close in. Outside, the Marauders began to circle the barn, their laughter echoing with confidence. One of them shouted. The farmer peeked out from the shadows. The leader was strutting around, conducting his gang like a symphony. The leader taunted. That was it, his chance. Farmer set one more trap before stepping back into the open. Lifting his pitchfork high, he shouted, "You want to intimidate me?" The Marauders looked at one another, uncertainty creeping into their ranks. The leader waved his arms, trying to rally them. "Ignore him." With renewed determination, the farmer lunged forward, swinging the pitchfork with precision. The closest Marauder stumbled back, caught off guard, and fell to the ground, disoriented. He yelled, scrambling to get back to his feet. Chaos erupted. The other Marauders hesitated, their confidence faltering as confusion washed over their faces. They hadn't come expecting a fight, and now they faced a man who was more than just a farmer. He was wild and unrelenting, fueled by the love of the land. The leader yelled, but his voice cracked. The farmer pressed forward, gaining ground, every shout of defiance pushing the Marauders back. He had their attention now, and he wouldn't let them escape. He shouted, thrusting the pitchfork forward. The Marauders looked at one another, doubt gathering like a storm cloud. One by one, they began to retreat, glancing back at the leader, who was visibly shaken. "You can't let an old man scare you," he shouted, but his voice wavered and the panic was palpable. The youngest of the gang, perhaps no older than 20, hesitated before taking a step back. "I'm not doing this," he admitted, shaking with fear. His voice cut through the thick atmosphere, igniting a spark of rebellion among the others. As fear swept through the Marauders like wildfire, they turned and fled, galloping away into the distance. The farmer stood tall, heart pounding with exhilaration. It wasn't just about defending the land. It was about reclaiming his strength, a power that had lain dormant beneath years of backbreaking toil. Still reeling from the adrenaline, he took a step back, breathing deeply, letting the reality of their retreat wash over him. Silence enveloped the farm, broken only by the gentle whisper of the wind through the cornfields. But the feeling of victory was short-lived. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, cloaking the land in shadows, a chill rolled over the fields. The Marauders had fled, but had they truly given up? His heart sank as he spotted movement in the distance, more figures emerging from the tree line. His instincts screamed. They weren't gone for good. An uneasy tension settled in his chest. The Marauders were regrouping, and his moment of triumph would soon be tested again. He crouched low, adrenaline spiking once more. He needed to prepare to protect what was his, but fear clawed at him. How many more were there? His lungs felt heavy, and uncertainty threatened to crush his resolve. But he couldn't give in. With a determined breath, he turned back toward the barn, gathering whatever he could find: more ropes, stones, whatever tools would aid him in this newfound battle. The air was thick with the scent of impending confrontation, and he knew it was time to stand his ground once more. The distant sounds of clattering hooves rang louder, echoing like a war drum, silencing all else. He could almost hear their laughter, an ominous reminder of the chaos they had brought upon his land. As the farm's tranquility crumbled, he felt the fire within him ignite once more, fueled by the love for his family and the history held in the soil beneath his feet. He would not back down again. Not when so much was at stake. Fear could be paralyzing, but he understood something vital. The only way to push through it was to harness that energy, to turn it into strength. He positioned himself, realizing he was ready to face what came next. The Marauders returned, but they weren't alone. More shadows joined them, a small army marching toward his farm, and the numbers overwhelmed him. Their taunts rose over the thundering hooves, echoing against the walls of his sanctuary. The leader bellowed, a cruel confidence radiating from him. The farmer's heart raced as he weighed his options. He had to think fast. Would charging in head first work now that they were more numerous, or would it spell disaster? His mind churned, emotions swirling between fear and fury. Just then, a voice pierced the air. It was his daughter standing at the doorway, wide-eyed and terrified. He shouted, heart dropping at the fear in her face. This wasn't just his fight anymore. It had become a struggle for his family's safety. "Go," but she stood rooted, eyes flickering between him and the marauders approaching. No, in that moment the weight of responsibility crashed down on him. He couldn't let her see fear, he couldn't let her think they were powerless. He had to show her what courage looked like under pressure. "Please go," he pleaded, firm yet tender. "I need you to be safe." A part of him felt an ache in his chest, knowing the danger ahead, knowing the risks. But his daughter shook her head, stepping forward. "I'm not scared." The fire within him reignited, not just for himself, but for her, for their family. He no longer felt alone, and that made all the difference. "Stay close then," he said, a fierce resolve settling over him. "We'll make our stand together." The marauders drew nearer, their laughter ringing through the night, but now it felt different. Equipped with the shared strength between father and daughter, the farmer felt a surge of determination he hadn't expected. He gripped his pitchfork, feeling it come alive in his hands. His daughter picked up a shovel, the weight new but nothing she couldn't handle. They stood shoulder to shoulder, knowing that against all odds, they were ready to defend their home. As the marauders closed in, the air pulsed with tension. The world fell silent apart from the unmistakable sounds of their advance. Their jeers faded into the background, replaced by the sound of the farmer's heartbeat and the steady breath of his daughter at his side. Whatever would happen next, they were ready, a united front against encroaching chaos. In that moment, time stretched as if eternity had folded in on itself. They tightened their grip, exchanging a look of unwavering courage. The marauders were just a few feet away now, their faces contorted with cruelty, and the farmer could see their intentions clear. The leader shouted, just as they surged forward, and everything changed in an instant. The world erupted into chaos. A storm of wild energy surged as the farmer and his daughter stood their ground, ready to fight for their lives and the land they held dear. Would they withstand the onslaught together, or would the marauders finally breach the sanctuary they had fought so hard to defend? As the shadows clashed within the soft orange glow of the setting sun, the battle for their home began.